Let me start on the last question on floods. If you recall, earlier this year, when we were briefing about the inclement weather, and I think it was exactly towards the Easter period, and the flooding. And you know we are committed to climate change program and management and moving to all those low carbon initiatives that will remove climate change. But there are other disasters in this climate change environment that are man-made, as you have called them. And I saw you wanted to retract or move away from that terminology. There are people who continue to reside in low-lying areas, within the flood line, and without, even when you remove them, they continue to go back. You remember this issue does not start today. You will recall that Gauteng, for some period, suffered serious impact by those who stayed within the flood lines of the Jaskei River, if you recall. And during that briefing, we indicated that at some point in which the disaster management teams, the planning teams, will have to make a report to Cabinet and propose a full relocation of the area. And we hope South Africans will understand and will not say we are victimizing poor people and so forth. When we have to demolish structures that are placed through floodlines, when we have to remove people who are building, in particular informal settlements that are being built in the floodlines. But government also remains committed to accelerating the building of proper housing structures through the NHBRC. Because you check, majority of those households that are affected is those houses that are still mud structures. And the eradication of mud houses, if you remember on the census 2022, they indicated the progress. But we are committed to meet the National Development Plan target of 2030 of making sure that mud houses are eliminated or eradicated in South Africa. And that does not really translate to the extinction of our traditional housing structures, which are commonly known as rondavels. You can build rondavels through materials that are stronger. But we continue to also encourage homeowners to make sure when they build their structures, they must make sure that the contractor register the structure with the National Housing, NHBRC, so that the NHBRC inspectors can ensure quality of the structure that can withstand the weather conditions. We are confident that the NHBRC are working to make sure that they revise and improve the standards for home building. In the infrastructure, what we call public infrastructure like roads and so forth, and in the Eastern Cape, you recall the time when we were briefing again earlier this year, we have spoken about a project that started in the 6th administration of Uwelisizwe bridges, to make sure that the type of bridges that are built, and this is not Eastern Cape alone, it's Eastern Cape and KZN, because of the size and the magnitude of the river crossings. And we were, towards the end of the 6th administration, there was a campaign led by the media to say we are not building bridges enough. And we indicated the type of the bridge infrastructure that you need to put in place. In Limpopo, part of Limpopo, in Lepelle-Nkupi municipality, because of the Lepelle River, commonly known as the Olifants River, in the Eastern Cape and in KZN in particular, and there can be other major rivers in other provinces, requires large budgets, not an ordinary 15 million. It runs in billions. I remember when I was still in the digital communications department, when we were doing digital connection, there was a river crossing that in the Eastern Cape that needed a 5-kilometer bridge. That is not small change. And the river, when it washes away, even the flood line, it watches, it goes to the edge of that bridge, meaning that you'll have to revise the flood line for those bridges and increase them to maybe 8 or 10 kilometer width, so that they cannot be the washing away of those structures. And I think we need to work together as South Africans and understand and stop politicizing infrastructure development, more so where we know that we need real and weather sustaining or withstanding infrastructure. We need to build structures that we can withstand 100 years. It is for that reason that the Minister of Finance and Cabinet approved the budget that was tabled and approved yesterday by the National Assembly, an investment of 1 trillion rands in infrastructure investment. Some of that investment will go into road infrastructure development, including bridges. I'll come to myself at the end. And I'm really indulging, sure. On Minister Nkabane, whether she has submitted the report, I have not verified with the President, but yesterday she has informed me, because she anticipated that this question will come through. She has indicated to me that she has submitted the report to the President. I have not verified that with the President. So I'm speaking on what she has informed me. On the meeting of the President and the National Director of Public Prosecution, Madam Shamila Batoyi, what I can indicate is that NICOC has not generated or submitted a report anyway to anyone. So there are speculations. NICOC is working on a report, or on reports across its nature of business, that it will work, and I know that because I'm responsible for NICOC. If there was such a report, I would have received that report and authorized its release, because I'm the minister responsible for the national intelligence structures. And that I had to call a friend on that one. And my friend has just sent me a message that I should not have responded, but I had to clarify it. So on the meeting between the President and the NDPP, it has to be the spokesperson of the President who will confirm that I don't manage the diary of the President. On why we submitted the travel expenditure, because it's the same question that you have asked, and also that was asked by Amanda Koza on the online platform. It's just not the travel to say which country have you gone to, but to say what meetings and all those other details, if you understand the nature of work, because actually 80% of my travel is travel for the work on state security. So it will compromise if we release it in public, it will compromise some of the initiatives that we are making. You will recall when the Russia-Ukraine conflict started, and the African leaders initiative led by our president had to go to Ukraine. It required some of us to do that type of work, preparatory work for that. And if you disclose such details, you compromise the operations that you are running as a country, and that's so you fail national security. It is for that reason that the National Strategic Intelligence Act has provided the Joint Standing Committee on Intelligence for us to fully account on those things that cannot be shared in public domain. There are meetings that I attend that we do not post on platforms at all. Because what we have posted is summits. It's not meetings. It's summits that are commonly known that there will be the summits and this is the delegation. So there is nothing wrong, because we are allowed by law to provide to the Joint Standing Committee of Intelligence, unless the Action SA wants to claim that the Joint Standing Committee of Intelligence has no capacity to hold us accountable. And those members of the Joint Standing Committee of Intelligence were appointed by Parliament and sworn in to make sure that they hold us accountable and to hold across all matters. We will not sacrifice national interest for political expediency, a national security interest for political expediency, will comply and work through the Joint Standing Committee of Intelligence. You will also recall that when I'm asked questions sometimes in Parliament, there are those that I respond partly and I say the details will provide to the Joint Standing Committee on Intelligence. Thank you very much. And we wish you a safer. You have a follow-up question. I'll stand and take the question directly.
Sorry, Minister, just to follow up, on rural development, if you look at the rural areas now all over South Africa, they are very developed, beautiful big houses. When those structures are being built, are there, when the area is there's demarcation for a structure to be built, does government play a role or municipalities play a role in that demarcation for a structure to be built? I mean, are engineers involved, or is just local communities deciding that we can have a plot here if you want to build a proper structure? Because those structures in rural areas are beautiful houses, and with disasters like this, it's worrying when you look at those houses being affected like that. So what I'm trying to say is there that...
I've got the question. I've got the question. Let me give you an example from the province that I've worked, and you all know that I was a municipal manager. In Limpopo, the government, since the premiership of Premier Advocate Ngwakura Matlodi, we took a decision to work from a provincial position, and I know because I was his spokesperson at the time, to ensure that our Department of Local Government and Housing then, which is today COGSTA, the Department of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs and Human Settlements, that we are going to work with traditional leaders to ensure that they do not just demarcate sites. The sites are demarcated by municipalities. We put the land surveyors, because they don't have land surveyors. So previously, and I also know, you know, I'm a chief as a Makatsi. So she's intimidating me by bowing. We used to have not even a headman, a councillor in the traditional council who will decide, no, your stand is here, it's not straight, there's no passage of roads and such things. But in Limpopo, we started an initiative to work with all traditional leaders and to make sure that they bring in land surveyors to demarcate the sites, including your business sites, manage the floodline issues, and so forth. And in that arrangement, because there is a cost to the land surveying work, we agreed that even if it's a rural area, there will be sites that are given to the municipalities, because they're the one carrying the cost, to sell so that they can recover the cost of their expenditure in land surveying and so forth. And then sites that will be then remain with the traditional leadership to sell or to give to their communities as children are born and so forth and so forth. Or new people, when you are new, they don't give it for free, you buy. When you are born there, you are given for free. That's how the traditional leadership arrangement works. And part of the work that we're doing through the local government reforms is to ensure the standardization of such arrangements. Because you would find that those beautiful houses, and I'm not mentioning a province because I don't want to be accused, those beautiful houses are built in a place where there's no road planned. There's no school planned. You can't drive straight on a road. There are no junctions. There are no, what you call them, in my language, you call them zimonemone. When the street is too long, you create a path in between sites, and then where you can, when the pedestrians can walk through instead of following a long drive to where a junction is. So that work will make sure that we address that. But in terms of engineers building the house, whether engineers are involved in building the houses, it is the individual homeowner who has a responsibility to make sure that when you build that double story, that mansion, or that triple story, you involve an engineer. And as such, that's why in my earlier response, we have called for homeowners to make sure that their houses are registered with the NHBRC. Even today, for those houses that have been built already, you can still register those houses with the NHBRC so that the NHBRC can come and do the quality assurance on the structure and its sustainability. And we are hoping, because the intervention on local government reforms includes the Department of Human Settlements, the NHBRC will feedback on the spatial planning arrangement to say, when we went to a village called Ashkunda Marema, and I can say that because that's my home. When we went to a village called Ashkunda Marema, how beautiful houses were built, but they were built in an area where there must be a road provided and a servitude provided, and that house must be demolished. As part of making sure that our rural towns, our rural areas, though they are rural, they've got basic infrastructure of roads that can be paved, that can have sewer if we are using waterborne sewers, and to avoid the contamination of underground water. There's electricity provision lines. There's also, in instances of road accidents, there's a reserve where the emergency responders can deal with those. And also now in the age of digital technology, where the fiber lines can also move. So that responsibility of engineers and also registering the homes lies with the national, with the homeowner. We are hoping that municipalities will strengthen the inspection to check if those houses are registered. And that will form part of the reform work that we are doing to ensure that there are enough inspectors to make sure that houses are registered, or the NHBRC builds capacity in various provinces and locally to make sure that their inspectors can go and make sure that those homes are registered. So that is part of the work in progress. In case the individual homeowners do not comply, government will have to force the compliance. Thank you very much. I want to wish you a good weekend. The weather predictions are still severe. As South Africans, we call upon you to take care of yourself. If you know that your home is in a low-lying area and in a flooding area, we request that you go to your local municipality to seek a refuge. Not that they will give you refuge, that they make provision for refuge or move in with families to make sure that we do not lose lives. We can lose infrastructure, we'll replace, but any loss of life we cannot replace. Thank you very much for your indulgence, and you must thank me for indulging me.